Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaming and everything in its orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim. Let's get into it. Today we're joined by a special guest. You know them, you love them. It's Alison.
Yay! Alison, baby. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi.
How you doing, baby? You all right?
I'm doing okay. I mean, I kind of just got done dyeing my brother's hair today. So it was like, and you know how blue is kind of a bitchy color, especially like it stains everywhere. So like it got all over my hands and I had to go run to work to get hair color remover wipes because I didn't think about that earlier. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to run to work to go get some, but I found some. I ended up spending $11 on the container of like color remover wipes, but I guess it's fine because I'll use them. I'm going to need to use them later, but like, yeah, but that's how my life's going right now.
Right. Well, I mean, you're quite well known for coloring your hair, bleaching it blonde and adding some colors. They always look really cute as well when you post them afterwards, always looking styling and gorgeous.
Not right now because the pink is like really, really faded. So I'm just kind of like wanting to get rid of that and like let it sit until after I get back from my vacation, and then I'm gonna dye the tips orange. So,
oh, did I inspire that? Did I with the ginger beard? Is that what we're going for?
If you want to like consider that, sure, but unfortunately, no. But
Alison,
she's so modest, isn't she? Isn't my co-host the most modest girl on earth? She's so demure.
Just admit that you're
cute. We love her. But yeah, I do it according to season. So like when winter rolls around, I'm going to be doing a reverse ombre. So like blonde fading into black.
So Alison, we brought you on today and I just kind of want to put this out there for the listeners. Can you tell everyone how old you are?
I'm 18.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, I forgot how young you are.
I know that is super young and I know that scares a lot of people, but like, yeah, that's a thing. It's established. And the fact that I'm not afraid to admit that, that's ballsy. Yes, it is.
Well, and it, you know, that's the kind of representation we need, you know, in all aspects of the community, because that you guys are the fresh wave, new generation. I mean, you guys are going to be the ones that experience all that life has to offer. And when you get old and jaded like us, you'll have hopefully a better outlook on the future and be able to, you know,
to laugh at the new way,
you know, make some significant contributions of your own. Because funny enough, that's what the topic for today is the future of the gaming community.
Absolutely. And, you know, like Tim said, we want to get people of every age range really onto the podcast and, you know, being appropriate. You know, it's not to get people who are underage because that's problematic, but 18's about as low as we can go, and you can obviously draw from a lot of those experiences, you know, which I think is going to speak to a lot of listeners, both currently in a certain age bracket and reflecting on that age bracket that they were once in. Because putting it out there, I believe the estimated average age of gainers discovering the community is around about 12, 13. And we all did that thing where we were like, are you over the age of 18? Yeah. Yes, I am. I'm clicking that box and I'm putting in my birth date, but I'm counting back the necessary number of years to make it so that I am the correct age to be on here. So
took the words right out of my mouth.
Go, honestly. So, you know, I think it's to kind of preface it and put it all out there, I think we all know what it means to be a certain age and reflect on that time in our lives, on our journey, because some people even started their gaming journeys while they were young, you know, underage, living.
I know that I used to talk to like a couple guys who did start really, really early. I think 14, 15, maybe even 16 is like when they actually like start to take the leap and jump for it. But of course they like lose weight. They like pull back because of like society or parental influence or like some huge factor that may seem really big now. But they look back at it and they're like, why did I ever let myself like let this go or something? Like, you know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, I can think back to being like in high school, thinking about the concept of gaining and being like, God, I'd love to do this. But, you know, like I was one of 5 kids. My mother's crazy. I've told some stories about her on the podcast, on live streams, on chunky chats, on all sorts. She is a very crazy woman and I love her to pieces, but she is crazy. And unfortunately, that would not have flown in her household. So, you know, there is something to be said about you've got to acknowledge your situation. If you can make it work, bitch, be the teen gaining sensation and make that happen for yourself if you really want it. But like, truly, there is so much freedom once you move out of the family home and discover life for yourself. And really, like, gaining is transformative. You curtail your life to be in a certain way that aids itself and lends itself to being a fatter person. And it's so much easier to change all of those facets when you are in full control of every facet of your life, like with a full-time job, an income, a house of your own, all that other kind of biz. So it does get easier to a degree as time goes on. Like,
right. I mean, even especially like when you get your driver's license, I think, like, because like over here, it's a really big deal as when you get it the first time. Because it's like you have that like sense of freedom. It's like your adrenaline kind of gets up, but like in a good way. And then like you're sort of just like, hey, I don't have to depend on these people to like bring me where I want to go anymore. And I don't have to like walk or like spend so much time like trying to find transportation somewhere when I can just do it myself.
100%. Tim, as you know, someone who you would have gotten your license, you know, a couple of years ago now, like, do you reckon that experience differs from generation to generation, or do you reckon that still hits the feeling, hits the mark?
Well, I was kind of slow to do everything, so I didn't actually get my driver's license until I was 18. It's typically you get your permit at 15 or 15 and a half, depending on what state you live in, and then you get your full license at 16 after you take your exam. And unfortunately, so I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, right up until I was 17, right? And at that time, I think that state had certain requirements on it. And then we moved to Ohio, and this state had restrictions like you had to take driver's ed, which your parents then had to pay for. And my mom didn't want to pay for it. So I didn't get my license till I was 18. And to be honest, I was a very nervous driver. I really didn't feel confident. I didn't feel confident trying to do it when I was 16. In fact, it was quite a fight to get me to do it at 18. I don't know. I was too young. I thought maybe, oh, it'll be fine. I'll just catch a ride with people. Yeah, no. I'm glad that I, bit the bullet and got it done. But yeah, I was, for generations now, I mean, I'm going to assume that it's still about 16 that you get your license and you're free to drive. But I don't know, every state's different. Some of them even have restrictions on what hours of the day you can drive if you're under 18. So I missed out on all that. Like, I got it at 18, bam, was driving. So
I know here that the first year you get your license, it's on weekdays it's 10 o'clock, I think. And then on Saturdays it's 11 is your curfew for like getting driver's license and stuff, but I've had mine for like 2.5 years now. So
I want to ask you, Alison, what is your understanding of the gainer community and its history? Like, in your own words, tell us how you think it all kind of started and the kind of journey it's been on until this point today.
Okay, I really have to think about that because I first heard about it when I was in middle school, and I think I was either 12 or 13, which, as you said, was like the standard age to like find out. And from my interpretation of it, I had very little knowledge. And it was, as far as I knew, it was people who intentionally like to gain weight, which was my total and complete understanding of it. That's all I knew. Like, I thought it was just like one kind of person in that community, gainers. So that's it.
Right.
And I didn't think there was anyone that influenced that. I didn't think that they had like any fans or anything. I thought they were just kind of doing it.
Because you identify as an encourager / feeder, is that right?
Yes.
So obviously at that moment you're thinking, oh, I like this thing. but it's not quite my particular flavor of ice cream. So maybe kind of shopping around a little bit, still looking for some ideas. So how did that develop from there for you?
I guess it's kind of like a little bit of a backstory, if I'm going to be totally honest with you, but I'm going to keep it short. So it kind of all started like I was in like 7th or 8th grade, and I had a crush on this like one guy from like my gym class, and I had gym class last period. And that was like when everyone was like wanting to go home. Everyone was over the day. No one really tried, and everyone still got an A. And there was this one guy that I really liked in there. As you know, like your hormones kind of like are all over the place, especially in middle school. And I completely dealt with my emotions towards like having a crush on the same sex because I identified as male at the time.
Yeah.
And I completely dealt with it the wrong way because the entire gym period, not just our class, but the entire gym period, found out about it. And then they started giving me grief about it because the guy I liked in my gym period was like a really like chunky, chubby guy. And he's not now. He like got hella skinny. But back in the day, he was. And like, I don't know why. It was just something about the way he looked in particular that made me think about it. And then like, as a kid, you fall into like that deep dark hole on YouTube and everything. And it just kind of like falls into place. Like,
I can definitely identify with that. You know, like the whole crush on a guy in gym class. And I was growing up in the age when the internet was basically in its inception. And I think in middle school, the most that anybody had was like AOL. And we didn't have the internet in my house. So I had to use my imagination. But there was a boy in my gym class who I had a serious crush on. And it was just something, I mean, not knowing what that is, you don't know that it's like you're attracted to that type of body. It's like, you know, because I was, I don't know, 7th grade, like puberty had hit, but you know, you're just figuring out what turns you on, what you're into. And there was something about the curve of this boy's belly. There was something about his the chubbiness of his cheeks. Like I just, you know, and if I'm going to be honest, yeah, he formulated a lot of masturbatory fantasies as I was entering puberty. And
what was your impression of the community when you first signed on to Grommr?
I'm not gonna lie, and I know I've the full right to be honest on this thing.
Really, girl, be honest.
But I did not have a very high view of it first signing on.
Can you tell us why?
One of the main things that really turned me off was gainer celebrities.
I mean, there's probably a reason why Lukitu wrote that comic series, Deal with the Devil.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about with the thing that we've talked about a lot, this self-promotion, kind of self-indulgent. Like I am popular and defined by my popularity by how many followers I have. And we've made gripes about, you know, followership and why are these particular cisgendered white men put above everybody else? Like, you know, I think we've probably beaten that to death, but it's clearly something that is affecting the newest generation of gainers to come onto the website. I mean, if you guys are noticing it, it's obviously still a problem.
I think that almost speaks to celebrity culture in general. You know, once upon a time, and Tim will probably be one of the first people to tell you this, you know, it used to be if you wanted to be a star, you had to be a fucking star. Like you couldn't just rock up at an audition and hum a few bars and go, oop, that's it, I'm going to be Hollywood's new it thing. No, bitch, you needed to know how to sing and how to dance and how to act. And
how to juggle, how to play the ukulele.
And that's how it used to be. Yeah.
Whereas these days, you know, you can drop a sex tape and have a reality show and flog juice cleansers on Instagram that have been scientifically proven to give you fucking melted bowels, apparently. Thank you, Khloe Kardashian's detox tea, whatever the fuck they're flogging now. But, you know, the modern celebrity is under a lot less scrutiny for quality, but people still follow them because that's what we've always done with celebrities, you know, whether it's starlets from the old era or kings and queens and politicians and war heroes from the years before that. We always looked up to the people whose names were put up in lights. We wanted to hear what they had to say. And whether it's that or our little microcosm community, we still look to the people with the most respect and the most attention as the ones we need to take the lead from. And there is something to be said when the conduct doesn't seem to match the tone. And there's something to be said when something that is meant to be a support system community network turns into a cash grab, which is something that a lot of people comment on. Because if enough people are turning around and saying the same fucking thing, it's not us just whinging about having a problem. This is the community coming together and telling you, we recognize that something's up here. So let me ask you this. How do you feel interacting and engaging with gainers and other encouragers on Instagram?
I feel like it's easier. Right off the bat, Instagram is a social media made for literally everybody.
Yeah.
And if you're taking this community and putting on an entirely different platform, it's already overwhelming. I feel like that's the reason why Grommr didn't work for me. Like, it was sort of like overwhelming. It was like I said, taking a whole community, putting it on an entirely different platform where I have no idea how it works, no idea who to talk to, no idea who's good and who's a snake. I feel like gainers are like more approachable on Instagram rather than over on the other platform.
Do you think that it's fair to say that for the younger generation of gainers, so let's say anywhere from 18 to about 25, because you guys grew up with the internet constantly, you grew up with social media constantly, like gainers at my age, like close to 40 and even above, we didn't grow up with that. And Grommr came out in an era of like that kind of social interaction, you know, and it's kind of like a bygone era, in my opinion. Like Grommr is focused solely on one community, right? And for most of us that joined it, we were like, yeah, we had lives outside of it, but this was where we decided to throw in our hat. Like, this is our tribe, this is our community, this is us. Whereas I feel like with younger people today, you guys are part of so many different communities. You know, you're not just throwing your hat in with one group of people. You're not saying, I only have one tribe. You know, I have a tribe that's in the gainer community. I have a tribe that's in the non-binary community. I have a tribe in the drag community. Like, there's just so many different places that you guys exist in.
I know specifically for me, and I've regretted this because I think there are some instances where I took it maybe a little bit too far, and I regret those, and I regret decisions I've made where maybe it wasn't the best decision to like incorporate this community into like certain aspects of it. But there are definitely times where I've tried to like mesh communities together, like with the gainer community, like especially with people that I talk to. And I think in a way it turned out worse than how it started, because for me it was overwhelming, and the fact that I wanted to mesh them together as a form of comfort and less stress. And in a sense, early on I felt like I was living kind of a double life, because you definitely have this like one like fetish sexual side or sensual side, and then you have like the normal civil human being, go out into the world, do your thing kind of thing. And then especially playing it as a teenager who's also trans, it's kind of almost a triple life. Like, you're going through discovering who you are, you're the civil person, you're the professionalism, this is what I'm going to do as a career person, you're the there are days where I'm in the mood for this.
So I've got a question for you, talking a little bit about your generation, the Zoomers. You know, so much of what you guys seem to do online, and I'd love to see it, because I think as a millennial, you know, I think we were the first ones to really try to kick things off with like clean energy and positivity and, you know, gay is okay. And don't get me wrong, I think we made some real great waves with a lot of different things, but I think you guys have really picked up the mantle in terms of just being unapologetically insistent with so much.
Unapologetically accepting is like the key term, I think.
Yeah, like I think,
and that's amazing.
I think for a lot of people in my age bracket, you know, we were very like, we'll fight for our right to be gay, but, you know, also like, we'll kind of hide a bit if we need to, because everything's very scary. And don't get me wrong, there was certainly a period of time, and in some places it still is that case, where that's the safest way to be. However, seeing you guys online being unapologetically yourselves, and truly to the point where it says, I don't care if I lose my family over this. I don't give a shit about any of you bitches. If you're not going to come correct when it comes to the true story about the race history of the countries, if you're not going to come correct about global warming and everything else going on, then I don't want any part of you. It is honestly so cutthroat, and I live. Zoomers online being like, this family Thanksgiving, I'm planning all of my triggers for like my old family members. And I'm like, oh my God, cannot wait to see it. The millennials are here with the cocktails being like, you go kids. We were a bit worried about the Tide Pods for a moment, but you came around again. You did good.
I love it too. I really do. Like, I really
don't even get me started on Tide Pods because that's just a mess.
Oh my God. Now,
I really admire that the Gen Z kids, because like being a millennial, we, like James was saying, we did fight for things, but we also kind of felt quashed by Gen X and the boomers, because they just tried as hard as they possibly could to squash everything we wanted, every dream we had down.
We were definitely the first generation of being called snowflakes, being called everyone gets a participation trophy.
Yeah, everyone's shitting on millennials. Everyone shits on millennials. They think that we are the core problem with America or the world, you know, depending on where you are.
I will happily take that hot load every goddamn time if it protects y'all and gives you some cover while y'all run around the back and shank them in the back of the neck.
Absolutely. I'm here for that too. I will take the heat if it gives the Gen Z kids the chance to be who they want to be.
So very much here for that. There's a lot of back and forth about how we seem to interact with culture and how culture doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not like we will all go into Grommr and experience the exact same one Grommr. And yet there's still a collective zeitgeist that comes about as a result. This one idea of the one perception that we all seem to have of the same thing, which, as we've discussed, is not necessarily a positive one, which is frustrating. You guys seem to focus really strongly on positivity, community support, mental health as well. Like, I want to ask, do you think that comes from similar engagement with other fetish communities? Is that just a generational thing? Like where does that come from for you?
Where does your courage come from? Because you guys have so much courage, and I'm curious as well, like, where does that come from? Because we didn't have it.
For me in particular, it definitely had something to do with how I grew up. I grew up living next door to my grandparents. I was a Mexican and Italian raised, so loud family, big talkers, hands while talking. A lot of my family had like confidence issues, and like they were very like passionate and very like expressive people. I felt like I needed to be the one that like always encouraged like a positive outlook, whether it's body, whether it's hair, whether it's outlooks. Getting down to the wire, that's where a lot of my courage comes from. Definitely feeling like I had to be the one to be overly confident and be overly expressive and just be out there, because hey, if no one else will, then do it yourself.
You touched on this a little bit before, actually, when you said about Grommr being its own social media platform and having a bit of a struggle with that. I think a lot of the progress that our community has made recently can be attributed to social media choices that people are making nowadays. Like, do you think, from what you've seen of gainers on Instagram, do you think people are really taking advantage of that and trying to do more with it? Or do you think people are still really hesitant to like do something with that potential?
With my view, I think it's definitely half and half, because while I do think it's becoming easier and more accessible for gainers and encouragers to express themselves and put out more content, because there's gainer memes out there now and there's gainer fan art and everything. And I heavily encourage that. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's like a huge, like, that's such a Gen Z thing to do with a community like this. Like, take this and turn it into art. Like, that's awesome. Like, I don't understand why like people, I'm surprised I haven't written like gainer music yet, or like, and I was talking to like James about this earlier, but like earlier this month, and I was like, gainer reality show ? Like, I will like dead ass write the script.
I've wanted to see that for years too. You know,
like I'm serious. Like,
loser.
and I stand by this. I will legit write the script and like show you guys, like, or send you guys like a PDF or something, because I'm telling you, like, they're taking this and they're turning it into art basically. And piggybacking on what James said earlier, I mean, it's very transformative. so is art.
Mm.
Like,
I
this
was
is
talking
art.
to James about how I would love to produce a gainer sitcom of some sort along the lines of, because there was a YouTube series called The Skeleton Crew that featured a gainer relationship.
I love that show.
And it's a good show. I mean, it doesn't focus
Seen it.
solely on gaining. There just happens to be a gainer relationship in the dynamic of the characters. But
legit
like, I would
had
love
the-
a show that literally focused on the gaining lifestyle.
I legit had the biggest crush on Nick Bombasino on that show for like such a long time. And some of the things that he said would be like, yep, that's fuel, all right.
We talked about this on a recent Chunky Chat. There have been a few things coming out recently from people, like on an episode, Katya talked about listening to gainer hypnosis, where it says, fatten me, you know, and like, I watched this with some housemates, and I'm sat there like, pearls clutch, like, how did they know? Who told you? But then Michael Henry is producing a comedy series at the moment, and like the sort of zinger joke at the end of the episode is this guy that Eddie Hops for has put on a bit of weight, and he's like, oh, that's because he's in a gainer relationship. He's like, what's that? And it's like, oh, because he's with the guy who's a feeder. He's feeding him up for sexual pleasure. Don't kink shame, Michael. And there's that kind of applause in the background where it's like, yeah, don't kink shame. But I'm sat there like, what is this unyielding support for who we are and what we do? And it was just such a beautiful moment to come back to the literal reality, which is Grommr does not own gaming. Literally any other human being in the world who has never heard of Grommr, never heard of gaming, is still going to sit there and go, the concept of obesity is hot, and I would like to put on weight. And they might give it a random term. And they're out there right now putting food away, going, I want to do this. But they've got no clue we're here because we're so insular and we're hidden. And we think we somehow own the rights to the concept, but we don't. And I don't know, like it was just interesting to think, you know, there may be so many more well-known celebrities, or at the very least queer celebrities, that know the concept. And I don't know, if you met them at a bar and you were having a drink and you told them, oh, I'm into gaining, they'd probably be like, yeah, okay, cool.
You know, I bet Matt McGorry knows who we are.
Oh, even if he didn't before, he will know now, because, and this is a call out to our community, y'all are horny fucks and y'all need to stop. I need to take a minute to say this, goddammit.
He really grabbed the bull by the horns and said, stop.
Yeah, no, this is a fucking stop moment. Mama says, sit the fuck down and stop it. Because you don't know him personally. You don't know if he's a gainer. I get it. He got fat. It's fucking hot. We jerk off to it. Absolutely. Because it's hot. Do not message him. Do not comment on his post with your shit. Do not be so basic. Because that is why people think we're fucking freaks. Because you're horny and you got no fucking standards and no self-respect and you ruin shit for everyone. And I'm not fucking entertained, and it does need to stop, because Tomska, very well-known British YouTuber who was put on a shit fuck ton of weight, again, gorgeous, very talented, makes the Aston movies, we love it, literally made a video calling out gainers because so many of you were commenting on his shit, sending him inappropriate messages, projecting your fantasy onto him as if he should give a fuck. That's something that needs to change in this community. That is not okay. Sorry to get on a platform there for a moment, but fuck me.
Reverend James has spoken.
Wow.
I should get a whip crack sound effect and put it right there.
I literally have no words. Like, none. Like, that was pretty much, wow.
I tried.
That's
It was a calling out that needed to happen. I mean, it's a very bad habit that some members of the community will focus on someone who is either a celebrity or is sort of celebrity adjacent, someone that has made a name for themselves, because we all know that there have been several bodybuilders over the last decade that have dipped their toes into the world of gaining for profit, really. I mean, they do it so that they can get a book deal or so they can get a TV show. And gainers will often latch on to this concept and begin to send them messages on their social media platforms like, you shouldn't lose the weight, you should keep going at it. And saying a lot of stuff that is not really appropriate to the situation and or to the person who is receiving the messages, you know, and creating a very negative impression of what our community is. You know, this idea that no one has their own free agency, and you should just fold to our demands. And this very insidious way of like, oh, you'd be so much happier if you were bigger anyway. Like, you can't do shit like that.
He said like bodybuilders dipping their toes into gaining, and then I immediately, my brain immediately went to Drew Manning.
The first time Drew gained weight, it was hot because he actually got chubby. There was actual fat and flab on him.
That's the thing though.
And it looked really good. But the second time around, it was much more of a bloated,
deflated.
I mean, he got a round belly. He did by the end.
That's the thing that really confuses me though, because the thing was like, okay, here's the thing. I've Gainer Pig Nick on Instagram. Love him, by the way. Love his content. Been watching him since he was on YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna be quoting one of his Q&A videos from YouTube, and he said supposedly when you gain weight back, it gets softer, and that's why I got confused. I was like, because going back to what Tim said, I was like, it definitely was like a bit more of a bloated look the second time, and I was like, that's where I got confused. But then I remembered everyone's body's different, so
yeah. I think a lot of his diet choices in the two experiments had a lot to do with it too. Like, I think first time around he went ham and just ate whatever.
So did James just now. I'm serious. Like, seriously, you literally went all in.
Girl, I don't give a shit. And it's the thing.
Like, no mercy for the week. Everything right there.
You think that's the end of it. Like, I should tell you the story about me and Sam Smith sometime, but no, like, I don't give a shit about who the fuck you are. Like, if I'm in your face and I have something to say, I'm going to say it. And if I get a raised hand, you will feel it.
That's what makes James the yin to my yang, because I'm still that person who may judge the audience a bit. Like, I'm like, okay, do I go off and tell this person exactly what I'm thinking, or do I try to do it in a more surreptitious way?
What do you think defines the gaming community as it is right now?
The way it's looking right now is a very like every man for themselves kind of thing, and it's a very like, I'll jump over mountains to save my ass, but I'll throw you under the bus if it means that that gets accomplished. It's very, very one-sided almost. And there's a lot of things that have been done to improve it, but just because you've done some work doesn't mean that it's fixed.
Absolutely. And as much as, Tim and I are trying to do something again with this podcast, trying to push forward, it's still going to take every single one of us to make active changes to have a cultural shift in the community. Very true. Tim, what's your take on it, the community as it currently stands, versus perhaps how it might have been when you first joined?
When I first joined, I mean, and this was like 10 years ago, so it's kind of hard for me to remember exactly what the vibe was on Grommr, but I mean, it was, everyone had just come over from Beefy Frat, which had been dying a slow death for a couple of years before the switch over to Grommr. And it was still all pretty much around the same age range of like college age or a little bit out of college. Of course, there's, demographics in every age group there, but first joining, it seemed like everyone had a little bit more of a sense of community, mostly because most of us didn't know what we were doing. And it was just fly by the seat of your pants. Today, it's much more of an every man for himself. I'm defined by my followership. I'm defined by how popular I am. And maybe I'm generalizing too much. Maybe some of those Grommr celebrities are not really like that. I don't know, because I don't know all of them. But I mean, the feeling that comes down, the trickle down effect is that these people are up here on the top tier, the upper echelon, and the rest of us are all wading around in the muck until one of them pays attention to us.
While that might be the community as it stands right now, I want to ask you, Alison, specifically, what is your hope for the future of gaming? And to me, this is kind of the big question of the episode, because you are that age, just like Tim said, you're that age where you've got your whole progression of gaining journey in front of you. Yes, encourage a feeder, but you see what I'm saying. You've got that whole timeline journey in front of you to see and affect change and do so much. I want to ask you, what is your hope for the future? What's like the biggest and most important thing you want to see changed? And what's the most exciting thing that you want to look forward to?
This first thing, there's a lot. That's a lot. But first of all, this is just me being the kind of person I am, and me kind of things wanting to go back to the way that they were when they started, I guess.
Right.
And by that, I mean, like, can we all just go back to YouTube? Like, and I definitely think like the YouTube age is definitely like where that was my like prime time of like getting into it. Cause it was around like, I want to say like 2016, 2017, like that brief time period, like the YouTube age of gaming was like, that was like my prime time. That was like where I would like, and now all of us are like either on Patreon or OnlyFans or.
From what I hear of what you're saying, yes, a simpler time. I mean, I'd like to kind of see like a gainer YouTube emerge, like an actual video platform where gamers could make YouTube content, even if it's just like a generic fetish tube, like call it fet tube or something, you know?
That's the thing where like it used to be though. It would used to be like like I keep saying, because that's what it was. It was a simpler time where it was just like, oh, if you wanted to see a belly play video, you could just like go to YouTube, like search your favorite gainer, and then like all the videos would be like listed there. But now like,
so in terms of
I guess
the future of gaming, like something that you could want to see in the future is the opportunity to have that again. So maybe it's like the evolution of a platform, which maybe it's more generic fetish based, but gainers of any designation could make video content for free and put it up just because you want to make content. And I do think that's why people made it once upon a time, because back when we weren't making money off shit, we were just doing it for fun. I'm kind of curious though, for you, Tim, what do you want to see in the future of gaming?
I would love to see a community that actually feels like a community. And like Alison was saying, you know, I'd like to see, I feel that the Grokio community of apps, so all of the things that Grommr owns, has become something of a monolith. And I would like to see a bit more variety, honestly, because when I think about places online for the gainer space, there's Grommr and all of its apps. And then there's Bigger City, which is really not for gaining at all. It's more for chub chasing. And the Belly Builders website. And beyond that, what else is there? I'd like to see more variety. I'd like to see us take up more space, pun intended, on online and have a greater sense of community. And I want to see what the most recent generation is going to do with it. You know, I want to see the things that they're going to come up with and throw my support behind it. I'd like us all to move away from this generation of just Patreon and OnlyFans, if only because you can't support literally everybody. It's just not possible. If you supported every gainer with an OnlyFans or a Patreon, you'd be broke constantly, because that would probably equal thousands of dollars a month. I'm not going to say that they shouldn't be doing it. I'm just going to say that, like, if there was a way for all of us to interact,
it shouldn't be like the first resort.
Yeah, basically.
You know, there is something to be said that the only way to really gain is to gain consistently, and not to be classist or, you know, about money. But literally, if you can't afford to gain, like, you can't do it, babe. And that's not to gatekeep. That's just a simple fact.
Yeah, it's not really rude. It's just, that's all there is to it. Like, if you can't afford it, then you don't do it.
You can't do it. And it's just a simple thing. Like, it costs money to overeat, and you got to do things consistently. And that's, you know, it's even a critique of things like gainer shakes. People are like, oh, the moment I stopped the gainer shakes, I lost weight. And it's like, yeah, because you were having an extra 3,000 calories a day, and then you stopped. You weren't maintaining what you needed to maintain in order to maintain the weight. Therefore, your body went, well, lose the weight then. That was temporary.
Because when you don't eat what you're used to, your body goes into survival mode, and it eats off the fat.
Yeah. And
then you lose it.
It's little simple things like that. And, you know, maybe that's going to be my point for the future. I want to see us grounded in reality a little bit more. I don't want to see us trading fucking gainer shake recipes where it's 3 cups of vegetable oil. I don't want to see us flogging Patreon like we ain't got a second income. I want to see us building community first and foremost. I want to see us supporting each other. I want to see us lifting each other up. I want us to be at the point that when people act a fool, the community rallies against them and puts them in their fucking place. so that they sit there and they go, oh shit, people didn't like that. I can't be a fucking dickhead anymore. That's what I want.
Well, that should be a given, but like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, this is the hope for the future. So I think to round off today, what have we covered? You know, we've looked a little bit into the past. We've seen that maybe interactions online haven't been too good. And probably you can tell from the tone of the conversation, that carries on even to now. Because you remember that stuff. You know, and you might think to yourself, oh God, maybe it didn't mean that much to you, but it clearly meant something to someone else. Like, there's a good lesson there. Don't be a random dickhead to people you don't know unless they're being shit. In which case, they're being shit. Great. Fuck them off. But otherwise, bit of kindness, bit of grace. Wouldn't go astray. just a little dull. Joining us. Where can people find you?
Okay, so my SoundCloud platform, I'm not a rapper. I should make that very clear. I'm not a SoundCloud rapper. I make pop music, and my handle is alisonreya, and my style blog on Instagram is at @stylebysandro.
Beautiful, love that. Well, that's it for another episode of Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a good review. As always, you can find me on Grommr, Instagram, and TikTok at stannnum, and Twitter and YouTube at stannnumg.
And you can find me on Grommr as Orpheus. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok as Thiccy Mouse. And of course, you can find more of what we've talked about today on Instagram and Patreon at Thicc Radio.
And now we're on Twitter and TikTok too, also at Thicc Radio. So until next time.
Bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Enter app podcast produced by Stan and Thiccy Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by stannnum.
Our artwork is provided by Lokitu.
Our theme song is provided by Thic Radio.